Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Digital Nomad World weekly series. I'm your host, Becky, and today we're going to be talking about learning to wake up and live with purpose with my guest, Zack Young. Zack, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Becky. Great to be here.
It's great to have you here. So, Zack, I know you've been a digital nomad for quite a while now, so I'm really interested to hear your story and how you got into this lifestyle. First of all, can you tell us about your background and how you became a digital nomad?
Sure. I kind of feel like my life has had many chapters. So I'll kind of come to the last couple of chapters. I spent about 10 years working in marketing, and I kind of chased success for much of my life. And then I found myself kind of feeling very unfulfilled, very kind of undernourished. So that was kind of the seeds of me looking at different lifestyles, different ways to live. Um, and then it kind of branched out of me to actually looking to leave that life and what did I want to do instead.
So I have a question about that. Like, what were some of the signals you were getting that you were unfulfilled or that you needed to change your lifestyle? Because I think a lot of people may get those signals, but not, be sure that's what it is or ignore them.
I think it was just like dreading Monday. I think the weekend, was kind of more of an escape, and then the Monday was like the dread. Sunday I would be like, I've got to do work tomorrow. I've got to go somewhere else. I've got to be sort of under someone else's command. So for me, it was very much about not having control, not really having a vision for my future. And I think, chasing success monetarily, material, things which perhaps weren't very meaningful.
I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. So, how did this feeling then translate and push you into becoming a digital nomad?
I started reading a lot, looking at perhaps alternative ways of living, a lot of philosophy, questioning kind of my beliefs and what really underpinned the life I was living. Um, and then it was about taking action, which is the most kind of fearful element to change, is that really kind of putting your plans into action. So I was looking at ways to go about changing. And then we decided on sort of the nomadic route, which was quite, well, not so early, but somewhat, in vogue, if you like, back then. It was sort of the cool thing to do for YouTubers to go away and go to Bali. So we kind of also had that inspiring us.
Is that, well, let me ask you, where did you end up going first? Where did you try this nomad lifestyle?
Thailand was the original destination. Um, and then we kind of branched out into Indonesia, Vietnam, and beyond. The first part, for most people who choose to try this life, I guess, is very much about keeping costs low and managing sort of an environment which is quite supportive of working online. So Thailand was going to give us that.
True. I think that, for example, Chiang Mai, Thailand is one of the most welcoming communities where you see other people doing the same things in cafes with their laptops all the time. And it can be such a support when you start. So that was, I think, a very sensible choice. So I'm going to start with some general digital nomad questions for you that I like to ask everybody when they come on the show. So can you tell me one tip, Zack, that you would give to someone considering starting this digital nomad lifestyle?
My tip would be accept that it's not always going to be, pain free. It isn't a paradise jump. It is a transition, and you have to embrace perhaps the painful elements as well. Um, but certainly to do it, to kind of feel that pain and lean into it. It's a different kind of pain to the pain which is present in that sort of mainstream or traditional way of living.
If you don't mind sharing, what kind of pain, what are some examples of some pain that you've experienced along this digital nomad journey?
Well, I think it can be very difficult in terms of building relationships, community. There has to be a lot more proactive investment from your side into to nurturing those things. Whereas when you're living that sort of traditional life, 9 to 5 office job in one location, some of those things are kind of, they happen by chance. They happen sort of because you're fixed to an environment. So I think the pain really is you have to take different initiative to actually kind of bring those things into your life. It can feel quite lonely initially. It can feel like quite isolating.
Yeah, I was thinking when you said the 9 to 5 office job of all your coworkers. After I quit my 9 to 5, I did miss them, even though I dreaded coming into work, like you mentioned, and having to go to one specific place. I did feel like I was always in the trenches working hard with my coworkers and I had bonded with them. So once you don't have them, yeah, you have to take action to meet people or you're just going to stay in the room that you've booked and work there. And yeah, it can get isolating really quickly.
It can be very scary to leave the group, if you like, the collective behind when you do make that change. You're kind of letting go of something. You're letting go of a version of yourself as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I like how you put that. Now, on the flip side of pain, can you share with us any funny experiences you've had as a digital nomad?
Well, I kind of feel like you live many lives in acceleration. So you're kind of experiencing so much. So you're kind of encountering stories from people around the world, which in itself is, it kind of adds flavor to your life. The stories I've heard from people who I meet, from different parts of the world, it's just so enriching. And of course, the funny stories as well. The stories of what happened to them last week or where they found themselves or what happened on the flight. I think that's always really nourishing.
Absolutely. There's many stories to hear, I know. Well, in 2016, you published a book called Learning to Wake Up: 4 Steps to Open Your Eyes to Possibility. And would you mind sharing some of the limiting beliefs that you mentioned in this book that hold us back from changing? As you were talking about, this is a transition and it's getting rid of one version of your life for another. So, how did overcoming those limiting beliefs help you in your own journey as well?
Yeah, this book was really like kind of a gift to the world. I felt like I had a duty at the time because my life as a nomad became so nourishing very quickly. I kind of felt like I had to give people a recipe, if you like, for making change themselves. Um, there's 4 different limiting factors, but the 2 main ones is about people, so the people in your environment and the environment itself. And there's many different limiting beliefs within those categories, which really shape what we believe, how we think, the barriers to our life, um, and very much sort of how we define success. For me, success was very much material. It was very much about status, what people think versus how I feel, the fulfillment element. So it's really kind of going on a journey of flushing out these definitions and these beliefs, which um, we have attached ourselves too deeply. But when you realize they are perhaps more kind of a guardrail to living a certain way of life or living a certain life, you realize they're not always conducive of your nourishment and fulfillment.
Can you give me an example of the people or the environment that you felt in your life was like a limiting belief that was like kind of forcing you to change?
Well, I think when you're living in a city, I was living in London before. I think when everyone around you is also sharing the same definition of success, this is inherited. You inherit your belief system from the people around you, whether it be your parents, your education, or the conditioning from your environment. So when everyone else is chasing success and they want to buy a new car or buy a new watch or buy a house, and the journey is kind of laid out for you, it creates a set of limiting beliefs which you then kind of inherit. And even if they don't feel right, you adopt them anyway, generally, because you don't want to be outcast by the tribe. So for me, it was very much about realizing material things. In my late 20s, I had a house or apartment, had a car, I had a lot of these tokens which I thought I wanted, but actually they didn't provide me any nourishment. So letting them go and kind of leaving them behind was really questioning the limiting belief which drove me to get there.
Uh, I have to ask, have you missed having a house or a car at any point while you've been on this journey? Because I've talked to some nomads over the time that they do start to feel like kind of going back towards where they started, where they had a base, and it sometimes becomes a bit of a hybrid.
I think it would be nice to have an apartment, but I don't see the value of having it when I'm not there. I think there were kind of pros and cons, and I think perhaps as you get older, maybe the priorities are reorganized in some way. But for me, it's been very easy to have apartment hotels, service departments, where there's kind of low friction. It's full service, cleaning. Really, you have your life to yourself. You don't have to worry about the sort of the day to day. So I haven't really missed it so much. I think during the pandemic, it was perhaps more difficult to be a nomad than before. So perhaps it would have been, nice back then just to have a base to go to. But I think more generally, it's been, yeah, it's not been something I miss.
Right. What were the other two limiting beliefs that you talk about in your book, besides people and
Uh,
environment?
influences influences from your education. So looking at conditioning and
Oh,
also family. Family drives a lot of how we believe in our map of the world, as we would call it. So these two, really drive a set of principles by which you live by.
yeah, I can definitely see how they would influence things, especially family. In my case, I can think. Well, you've also written about how you are on a mission to cultivate purposeful living. And I personally feel like many digital nomads are on a mission to find their purpose, whether they completely quit their jobs and just go out and start traveling and try to find work or purpose there. Would you agree or disagree with that? And do you have any tips you could share for how to find purpose and then implement it as part of your daily life?
Yeah, purpose for me is very important. I kind of feel purpose links to being of service, to having some degree of value in the community. And that doesn't mean you have to be famous or the top of your game, serving millions of people. It can just mean serving a handful of people and being of value to them. So for me, it's very much about reorientating my life constantly to think, am I being of service? Is this something I can do with my voice, with my feet, um, some presence, or some other way for me to be of value here? Can I share something? Perhaps, can I support in other means? So encouraging other people around me to do the same.
Did you find that you had time and often were that way when you were working that your 9 to 5 in an office, or is this something you've kind of come to later over time?
I think very much, as I said before about the definitions of success and fulfillment. If you're chasing success, success generally doesn't mean purpose. It generally means something more hollow. Fulfillment, being of service for me very much links with fulfillment. How nourishing do you feel and how much value do you bring? So it's very much come from me flushing my life from those limiting beliefs and kind of rebuilding from the ground up.
How can we flush these limiting beliefs out? I've found it difficult with certain beliefs I have, like especially as you said, from family, cultural norms. How can we flush these out?
But I think that for most people, the fastest way to do that is to be away from your regular environment. So taking yourself out of your regular environment, no triggers, there's no sort of egocentric motives in your behavior. You don't have to impress people. There's no identity to maintain. You can just be truly with yourself in this different environment. And I think you're kind of much more conscious about what's driving you, what's pulling you, what's natural, what's coming up. So I think for me and what I've seen around me is this really is an effective strategy. You need a month or more away from that environment to start questioning, what do you really believe? What do you really feel? And not what you're adopting from the environment, from the people around you, from conditioning. you're truly just with yourself.
I think also asking those questions, even on a daily basis, once you're out of that normal environment, because speaking for myself, I know I can go for a whole month doing a lot of work and not even spend time asking myself these questions. So it's very purposeful.
Yeah, we constantly have to question what's driving us. But I think most people, unfortunately, they aren't in a space, they don't have capacity, whether it's because of work, and they're trying to pay the bills, or whether it's because they are tied up with some other pursuit about maintaining identity. People don't perhaps always have capacity to think so freely without being kind of pulled back to one of these, lower frequency states, should we say. So it's very difficult, I think, in that regular environment. I think vacation time, questioning, setting out a plan, trying to take some time to be conscious about your thoughts, doing a lot of reading, definitely help, plant the seeds for change.
Yeah. I want to go back to something you mentioned. You said you're always questioning whether you're being of service. How do you do that these days after so many years of being a nomad? What are some ways people can be of service when they're moving around to different communities?
So for me, I'm now a coach and a therapist. So I work with people individually and in group therapy. I feel like this is my calling right now. And I think writing as well, showing what my perspective, my thoughts, what I've learnt, in my own life, but also in my practice. I think there's lots to learn and share from that. But I think also protesting and kind of when you believe in something so deeply, showing up, whether it's protesting online, but more importantly, in person, actually standing your ground. And I think anybody who has a set of values and beliefs which drive who they think they are should really follow them. And I think that can be reflected in protesting and which events you go to and what you share and how you show up.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And it is so easy these days to announce that you want to have meetups yourself or find those like-minded people who are voicing some of the same beliefs and feeling this community as you get together. So,
Definitely meetups. You mentioned meetups. We can always we have the agency to create something, and community is something which is so desperately needed in this world. So I think we all have agency to create new communities around something which we believe.
yeah, and I have to say here for those watching on Digital Nomad World, the website as well, which is at digitalnomads.world, you can also create events and have meetups and make them yourself anywhere in the world. So it's always a powerful tool, and you never know who you're going to meet, right? Have you met, can you share a story of anybody that you've met by having a meetup in different places around the world?
Yeah, I've made or set lots of meetups over the years. I think in Berlin, one of my good friends, Kat, we met in Berlin in this meetup, um, and we both discovered something about German culture in this process as well, because we usually would take a lot of photographs, from the meetups, but actually, some of the people there didn't want to have the photograph taken. It was very privacy centric. They didn't want to have their photograph online, so we've always stayed in touch because of this initial encounter, because we were so shocked that we were usually taking photographs and taking a selfie. Um, but we became very good friends now. So, but so many people over the years,
Yeah,
great people.
it's a powerful tool, as I said, and I know I was inspired by seeing you have some meetups in Chiang Mai, which is where we met, and I hope that you keep doing that and we can attend a meetup together one of these days.
Definitely, they're really nourishing to have people around you who have also taken the initiative to do something different. Even if it's for a chapter of their life and not forever, I think it's quite nice to sit around a table and look in these eyes of other human beings with a story probably not too different than yours, and you've all kind of found yourself in that spot. So it's really nourishing.
Yeah, and going back to finding your purpose, it's also like if you never know what kind of conversation you might have with someone at a meetup that can lead you to finding out more about yourself and perhaps discovering the next chapter of your own life.
Definitely, everyone's shining a light for each other, sharing resources, recommendations, and stories. So, so true.
Yeah. Okay, I also wanted to talk about how you believe, from your writing, you've said that to stay relevant, we also need to become lifelong learners. How does this play out in your life as a digital nomad and in the digital nomad community more generally?
But I think for everybody, not just nomads, we have to always stay relevant. We have to always stay of value, I guess. Um, so whether you're working in a regular job and you're sort of having to stay present because everything's changing so fast, but more importantly, as a nomad, you have to kind of really have your eye on the ball. And I think very much that involves, constantly learning. So taking courses, upskilling, accessing the latest and greatest so you can see what's coming next. Certainly right now, a lot of people are very much involved in the AI space. So having an awareness or understanding of how that might change other industries, obviously the crypto space and blockchain, how that's impacting different industries. I think we should all stay relevant with those, kind of bleeding edge technologies and industry changes.
Absolutely. What are some things you've been learning in the last few years?
Well, I'm very much constantly learning, in my practice as a therapist. This year, I'm doing a trauma-informed psilocybin course. So basically, working with psilocybin and psychedelics to support clients in my practice. I think this is, the next evolution of therapy, as a healing practice. So looking forward to, diving more into that.
Yeah, is that something that, because I know you do your calls remotely and you're a digital nomad. So with these clients, are you recommending, are you kind of preparing ideas about taking how much psilocybin they might take, or are you actually meeting them and thinking in the future you might be able to conduct sessions with them, or maybe be on the computer as they do it and be there with them?
Well, my intention with this practice is to take, the psilocybin element to the practice into retreats. I think
Okay.
interventions in person, a long weekend, perhaps a week, out of your regular life to make real radical commitment to change. I think psilocybin can be an element to helping people do that. Very much fleshing the ego, fleshing identity, and helping people reset. So my intention is to use it in person. I wouldn't like to engage in that perhaps using my screen. I don't think it would be as supportive.
I was thinking it would be possible, but it would be very difficult. I think there's some things I still believe should not be remote.
Definitely. But of course, the prep work and the integration work for any of these retreats would be online. So I think it's about kind of building momentum and rapport. And then, of course, showing what we learned after the experience in a longer journey virtually, but then having the intervention in person.
Absolutely. And you'd mentioned that now you're a counselor and you're working with clients. Was that something you learned after leaving this 9 to 5 job that you used to have? I know you mentioned you were in marketing. So is this another tool or a course that you took and then you've been able to use it now for your main income and working with people and giving back, like you said?
Yes, yeah, I kind of reskilled and retrained. I was already a coach. I already had, NLP and a various other set of courses like hypnotherapy, but to actually, become a therapist, a counselor, yeah, I had to reskill and retrain. Some of which was in person, some of which has been done online. But yeah, it was kind of redirection, complete flushing of everything, and rebuilding what really is meaningful here. How can I be of service? What really nourishes me? And of course, what can be done online, which is also an important factor here. there are many barriers to what you can do online. There are some limitations within the therapy space, certainly. So choosing specifically what was possible.
Yeah, and as you said, knowing what nourishes you, to go back to this idea of finding your purpose. And yeah, how can you, like you said, you knew you wanted to get out of your environment to really push past these limiting beliefs. And so, yeah, putting those things together.
Yeah, certainly nourishing. I think the question I ask myself all the time, how nourished am I? You know, and really do an assessment based on how nourished I am with certain things in my life.
Yeah. How can you assess that? I'm trying to think if I asked myself tomorrow morning how I would know how much nourishment I needed or what was going to nourish me.
Well, I think there's a kind of very simple model, which is just rating 1 to 10, how
Mhm.
nourished you feel in each area of your life. There's something called the Wheel of Life, which is an assessment tool helping you sort of map out how satisfied or how nourished you are with each element of your life. Very simple tool to kind of benchmark where you're at, where the work has to be done.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. I'm going to check that out as well. Zach, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Is there anything else you would like to share with us before you go?
No, just thank you so much, Becky. It's been great to connect today.
It has been. And okay, my final question for you is if people want to follow you, where can they go?
I think Instagram at Zack Young or my website, zack-young.com.
Yeah, and we will have the spelling, but that's ZACK.
Perfect. Thanks, Becky.
Thank you so much, Zach. I hope you have a wonderful day.
You too. Ciao.
Ciao.